dance.
Sorry, 1 second.
Okay.
Chaotic systems, huh?
Yeah. So meanwhile, I will say a few words about why do we even test our like algorithms in order like to check if they are chaotic, like if they are random. We can easily make an algorithm that like seems to be random, but it can be predicted. And for security reasons, if we use it in cryptography, that is a bad idea because like bad hackers can predict the outcome and hack our data and hack our motherboard and so on, and we can fall into very big trouble. And in some cases, like for Monte Carlo methods, the outcomes, like the quality of the PRNG is very important, since depending on the quality, we can get different outcomes. So like if we want to calculate, let's say, using Monte Carlo method, some volume, and our PRNG will generate a lot of numbers outside of the volume and only one on the volume, then like dividing the ones in the volume through all of the numbers that we generated, then it turns out like that we calculated volume in a bad way. So like testing PRNG is a very important thing, and we tested basically the best test is like the chi-square analysis, which tells us like how often the number that is really random would exceed the number that we generated. Kind of complicated, but let's imagine that we are randomizing a number, and it is our number, like the one from our PRNG, and we compare that with a truly random, let's say, distribution of numbers, and see how often would those like those real numbers, real random numbers, be exceeding that that value of ours. And we state like chi factor in percentage. Like the good PRNG is having that around like 50, and if allowed like 50%, and for the ones that have for the PRNGs that have this chi factor like between 0 and 5%, we consider that they are not random at all, and the same for the ones that have chi-square above 95%. So, getting back to the presentation, by using AND, we did like this chi-square analysis, and it turns out that for Logistic Map it's 81%, for Math Random it's 51%. So it's quite okay. However, as we calculated pi from using Monte Carlo methods, we got much smaller error than using Math Random from built in the browser. Another metric is mean. So if we operate on bytes, then like in normal 127, here is something around that, as well as here. So we can state that, yeah, for 10,000 bytes of data, this is quite a good PRNG. Okay, so we will make a larger sample. Okay. Okay. Please. Okay. So for bigger sample, which here I used something like 50 megabytes of data, something funny happened, and our chi-square dropped down almost to 0. So it means that for a large amount of data, we got a PRNG that is not random at all. And the question is, hey, why is that? So why is that? So that's where like the phase space diagram comes into place. So here on the left side, we have like diagram for math random function. So we can see that it's all covered with the results. So all of the results are possible. However, for logistic map, we have a shape. And that shape is called an attractor. So this is the place where all of our solutions will lie. So as you can see, we will get numbers from 0 to 8 to 16, but they will form a pattern. And that pattern is what is making our PRNG failing as a PRNG. And why is that? Because as you can see, in the middle of the area, there are no dots. So if we randomize a number, which is, let's say, here, around 10K, and here's the speed of changes, then we cannot randomize, and now, like the next number we randomize won't be anywhere around that. So pairs of numbers around like 10K don't exist. In case like above, they exist. And in real life, if we truly randomize numbers, we can expect a situation when on one iteration we'll get 10K, and on another iteration we'll get 10K and 1. And that is why the chi-square analysis is failing, and that is why the PRNG for large amounts of data is failing. So, yeah, conclusions. Chaos is fascinating, it's unpredictable, but it is not random. However, it is okay to use like logistic map or any like chaotic equation if we don't need like true cryptographically secure randomness. Whoa, not yet. Okay. Another thing, that computation based on chaos and like this chaos that we get in our PCs is only local phenomenon. And why is that? Because in computers, we have limited number of bytes representing a number. In real life, like we can theoretically get infinite precision. And for infinite precision, we can like compute all the numbers and we won't fall into cycle. However, if we use computer, due to the fact that we have limited precision, one of the iterations will end up with a number that was a seed. And then we will start to falling into the cycle, and we will recreate the cycle that we started with. Because, as I said at the very beginning, the computers are deterministic. And what was like, for me, what was the best thing about it is that even if we get to unsatisfying results, I was very unsatisfied that my awesome PRNG isn't so awesome. The journey itself can be a great adventure. So now, any questions?
You shocked me, of course. I'm always shocked when people finish before the 25-minute mark. Never expected that. Fantastic presentation. I almost started to understand something.
Thank you.
It was close. Okay, so we have this. Speaking of random, does anyone have any random questions that they'd like to ask? Okay, this time, sir, you're close. Because of the way we had it set up today, I'm going to need to invite you to say.
We don't have the voice.
I have to go there. Yeah. So I can take the microphone there now?
You
You told me not to take the microphone. Okay, here you go, sir.
So So was this implementation useful for your game? Did you get to use it?
Yeah, basically yes, and it works.
It's back the microphone because the streaming was okay.
He needs a microphone.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Right. Was it useful in the end?
Yes, it was useful because like I don't need like cryptographically secure randomness in my game.
Tell us about your platform. Can you tell us about your platformer game? That's what this is for, right?
Yeah, it's okay. So the platform game is, let's say, brutal platform game when you walk with a skeleton, shoot to the other like skeletons, and have level that is like a flat surface that changes with some like restricted conditions, you know, like that, to have like two tight slopes, and that was like the biggest challenge on basically limiting the randomness on that.
Why does JS use deterministic random numbers in general? Because you know the map, right, is deterministic, right?
Yes.
Why do they choose to use true chaotic numbers? Because I think it's like you could sleep for like network traffic or something like that, on the adjustment, right?
Oh yes, like regarding I needed a random generator that is like seedable. If you want to have something that is like undeterministic and it uses entropy, you can use def random, which gathers the entropy of the machine that you're running your code on and provides you randomness with that entropy. Fun fact about that is if you run your code that uses def random on virtual machine, your code will stop on that function because it doesn't have any entropy. So to be safe, it's better to use def random, which like prevents that and like is being helped by some algorithms that are deterministic.
Yeah. Why do you choose JavaScript in the first place? There's plenty of tools like in the Python ecosystem.
Okay, so I don't like Python. I love JavaScript, and it's like a first language of choice for anything I do. And like this is yeah, it might be done in like and it would be probably more efficient in any different language, but no, I like JavaScript. And
okay, so I'll go with my question then. This is some amazing science, what you're showing in there. Okay, this is not working.
Okay, shout out.
I broke it. Yeah.
Please.
Okay.
No. It's working for folks that are online, and you have to shout out in order, like, for everybody here to hear.
So my question is, because it's some really nice science, what you're showing, and do you know about any different applications of some pseudo number generators?
Yes, we can take that offline. Like, it's a let's have it offline. It's a great question, and I would love to like talk about that.
Are we speaking about concurrencia here, or what are we talking about? Does anyone else have any questions? One more question for Krzysztof. In that case, we're going to move on to the next talk. Krzysztof, thank you very much. Give him a hand, everybody. Actually, the clicker. I have to take my luck with it. I'm going to go back all the way through your slides. Let's see how this is going to work. All right, folks. So in the meantime, I'm going to set up for our next speaker. Okay, conclusions. Which way am I going? Okay, back. I'm just going to keep pressing until I get a response. You said I have to be nice? Okay. Can you please change slides? Can you please? Oh, here we are. All right. In the meantime, folks, another one of our sponsors, I found this thing. Okay, now you might think it's nothing. For me, this was a big deal. I think discoveries, one of the better discoveries I've made since I've been here. This is SoftServe, and I think they said for your future. Love the phrase, also love the motto. Let's see where we're going. All right. It's Natalia, our next speaker. It's you? Yeah. Of course. Our next speaker is going to be Natalia Pyka, and she's talking about JavaScript in embedded systems, best of both worlds. Well, before she starts, what does anyone think? Is it the best of both worlds? Everybody say yeah for yes. Everybody say no for eh. That means it might be true.
You're stealing my opening question.
No way.
Yeah.
Come on, Natalia. Welcome, Natalia, to the stage.
Whoa. Okay, let's hope this works. I'm known of breaking electronic equipment wherever I am. Let's start with my presentation, which is about a pretty controversial topic. Some say it's even more controversial than the division between people who prefer new and old Star Wars movies and its usage of JavaScript language in embedded applications. Here is a really short resume of mine. I graduated electronics, long time ago. Okay, I get the point. Back in times, you have paper notes during studies. I do, a lot of C, C++, and Linux things. I work in SoftServe, which seems to be one of today's sponsors as an IoT expert. And my knowledge about JavaScript mostly boils down to reading JavaScript, the good parts, and having many friends who write in JavaScript. And then we meet and complain about more or less the same things. So I think that there is at least some basic understanding of embedded people and front-end people, as well as the full stack ones. Okay, it's working. Here was the survey, but let's do it live, not to log to anything. Has any one of you wrote some C or C++ code? Whoa, much more people than I expected. Have you ever tried to program microcontrollers in JavaScript? Have you ever struggled with memory management in pure C? Okay, we might have a therapy talk offline about this topic. So here's my agenda in a really shortened way. There will be many oversimplifications because we have half an hour and not 3 hours, unfortunately. I will tell what are embedded systems, especially the modern ones. Why is usage of JavaScript and Node.js in embedded systems both a very good idea and a terrible idea? And I will show you some real-life examples of devices running JavaScript and being actually widely used in the field, both for hobby projects and nowadays also for commercial ones. Here is also my hidden agenda. It's to encourage you to try out some new things, get some new knowledge, and do all of it with some knowledge you already have. So yeah, I hope you will jump into the rabbit hole as I did like 15 years ago. Here's a very short and very simplified history of embedded systems. I think this picture says it all. Here you have an Apollo guidance computer from the moon mission in 1966. It had 4 kilobytes of RAM and 2 megahertz processor. That's not a lot. And here's Amazon Echo, which everyone says at home. Hello. Okay, this is possessed, let it be. You're showing me something? Not this way, the other way, thanks. And here is Amazon Echo from Alexa, which many of you use to buy things online. And this small device has 2 gigabytes of RAM and 2 gigahertz processor. So here may be a question, oh my God, how did they made it to the moon with such small amount of memory? Well, actually, the answer is pretty straightforward because in space, many things are deterministic. So if you know when you are, where you are, and when, it's pretty easy to navigate. However, still, the code of this computer is a masterpiece, and I bet that many weird assembler tricks were made them to even make it possible. And here's also a completely new concept of Internet of Things. So if we consider a single microcontroller like a building or a single black rubber duck, as it was shown today, Internet of Things is a full city, school of fish, or what is the name for a crowd of ducks? I don't know. I only know that for crows it's a murder because it's funny. It's like a whole modern city of many devices interconnected with each other, exchanging information in many different ways. And well, the task of a single microcontroller is not anymore one small thing like changing the room temperature basing on the thermostat settings. It's much more complex. And right now, there are around 27 billion of devices connected to Internet of Things. However, the market is growing really rapidly, and there are some expectations that there will be even 1 billion devices by several years. So, well, that's a lot. Project management people may say, whoa, that's a lot of tasks into a backlog and many work hours. And yeah, it's right. Somebody needs to sit down and actually make it happen. And most probably this will be us. But here's the main problem. Oh, I will try to use the pointer. Yeah, I did it right. Here's the main problem with low-level C and C++ application. You most probably know this picture. I also use it as a template for many of my memes. And the C code may run really fast. It's really energy efficient. But, well, there are some issues with portability. I may tell you about my latest projects. For example, when we upgraded the compiler by one version, and it broke so much that we spent several weeks of fixing things, which actually turned out to be turning warnings off because all warnings were treated as errors. Anyway, there is an issue with how fast are we able to create a code which well, won't crash and burn within the first days of its actual usage. And yeah, as you might have probably already guessed, there are many challenges in the embedded systems industry right now. These are not all the challenges, but the ones relevant to today's topic. Code is not really portable. Everything what needs to be done low level needs you to be really familiar with the architecture, spend a lot of time with data sheets, and then be really angry because you shifted a bit in the wrong way and you made something crash. Maintainability of devices working in the field is, well, also messy. Imagine that you have a mesh of sensors somewhere in the field, like agricultural ones, and somebody needs to go and somehow upgrade them. If you need to do it manually and you don't have the so-called over-the-air upgrade possibility, you need to delegate some poor guy with a flash USB stick to manually upgrade all of it. And I assure you, this guy won't be happy with this task. And right now, well, there is known problem of hardware shortage. From what I remember several months ago, it was literally impossible to buy even simple evaluation boards like Raspberry Pi. And as I mentioned before, most probably many people know it from their own experience. There is an incredible market demand. However, the development process is slow. And yeah, many security issues, just like in literally every programming languages. As my boss says, the S in IoT stands for security. If you don't believe me, you most probably remember all the cases when somebody broke into some Fort Knox level of system by hacking a driver of a pump in a fishbowl. And there were many situations like that. Sometimes it was an USB wireless kettle. So it's still happening, and it's not good that it's happening. So here is a really nice chart showing how the mindset of programmers is actually shifting, because these are top technology challenges from embedded.com website survey. The ones in, let's say, red are from 2009, and the ones in blue are from 2019. So back in the days, it was a real challenge to manage the code size, to obtain software tools. I guess it was about writing everything from scratch or reinventing the wheel, integrating things, and building process. Right now, it has changed a bit, meaning that people are not so scared of their, let's say, legacy code base or learning new tools. However, they need to deal with low power and, yeah, as I said, security concerns. Yeah, low power is also a big topic, especially if you are creating some devices which need to stay up for a long time. Trying. Okay, technical issues. Okay, I was set to point into the into the laptop, and now I did. And here's the topic of applicability of JavaScript in embedded systems. For context, I remember that 10 years ago, when I graduated, I was searching for a job, and I found an offer for embedded JavaScript developer. I said, no way it's possible. Then I went to my friends from the university, and I graduated electronics, so we mostly did assembler, VHDL, and sometimes some C. C++ was too high level for us, and they also said, no way. But now I see more and more actual applications of JavaScript, which are really great, and they actually make sense. So why is JavaScript considered in some applications on some life cycle of them? There are, well, more experts in the job market. I would say much more. It's really difficult to recruit a developer specializing in low-level programming. Memory management is, well, easier, but it's oversimplification, because it's easy if you just want to let garbage collector do their thing, and it's all. You don't have to manually allocate and then deallocate memory and then run Valgrind and have terrible errors and have nightmares about them later on. Development is, well, much faster. I wanted to find some actual data to back it up, but there's no such research. Only there was one research that shows that number of lines of code written per hour is more or less the same in every programming language, and it's much easier to accomplish a lot in not many lines of code in scripting languages than in like traditional imperative paradigm C. A firmware upgrade is much easier. Why is it much easier? Because most probably, if you are running scripts, you just need to upgrade the script, which is a text file. It's most probably the same batch file for many devices. In case of binary upgrades of the application, well, it gets much more messier. However, the topic of firmware upgrade in Internet of Things is difficult. now I'm looking at this poor guy I mentioned before with this USB stick who needs to go through the field and do all of it manually. It's portable because you run it on a virtual machine. You don't run it on one particular architecture and it only works there and it crashes elsewhere. Virtualization is easy. NPM has an incredibly big package base. I know that many people find their quality debatable in many cases, but imagine that you can test something locally on your PC, and when it works, you can just deploy it to your microcontroller and be happy that it works in the exactly same way. Well, you have a REPL. It's also a really useful thing, especially if you just want to play around with the hardware. And event-driven frameworks are like magic for all sorts of connectivity application, especially when they need to handle large peaks of incoming data. If you want to write a basic event loop in C, then well, it's much more difficult. At least I have never saw a great implementation of event-driven architecture. Unless you really like to write callbacks or function pointers, and I don't, let's say. And yeah, then what's the catch? What's not as perfect, and why don't we just throw away all our previous code base and switch to JavaScript? Well, it was created for browsers, not for operating systems. Here, the counterpart may be that, okay, but C or assembler was created for simple microcontrollers and not for this combined type of microcontrollers doing everything, handling network traffic, and so on. Its runtime performance is not really good. However, still, according to some research I found, it's twice faster than Python due to a better memory management. It's memory handling. It's done undercover so that if you want to write some particular value into some particular register, you most probably need to use some frameworks which are implemented in C anyway. Resource consumption is pretty big, but still a bit better than Python. Multi-threading is complicated. So, well, I'm not really familiar with JavaScript model of multi-threading. From what I remember, actually undercover there is only one thread. So it would also allow some wrappers to make it run in a multi-threading environment so that it won't break things. Security is an issue. I will get back to it on the next slide. And energy efficiency is worse than in system design languages. It needs to be considered if some really low power and low energy power application needs to be written. But still, it's slightly better than Python, at least according to some benchmarks I found. Regarding experts in the job market, here is a nice chart from this year's Stack Overflow's annual survey regarding people who program as a profession. There are, I would say, like more or less 3 times more JavaScript engineers than C++, at least on this platform, and around 4 times more than C experts. Still, what's interesting is that it's a chart for people who are already programmers. I'm afraid that these numbers are even more divided for people who are newcomers and just want to write something, because it's much more interesting to see something you implemented works on a website than to wait for a microcontroller to arrive, then connect it, then something's not working, checking the electric scheme, and just this testing and writing or TDD loop is much longer, so to say. And yeah, there's also a nice chart about language security from Ment.io's white source security report. JavaScript JavaScript was in yellow here. Okay, I went overboard. Sorry for that. JavaScript is in white here. C is in almost the same purple as PHP. However, you can see that many vulnerabilities are being detected in C. This may mean that C's memory management level or easiness of doing a buffer overflow is really possible, but sometimes somebody may also say, okay, but C programmers are just more cautious and report more errors. Anyway, it's just a threat in all the cases, so there is no silver bullet for that. No matter which language you use to do some IoT, you need to be really cautious not to disclose too many things. There are many popular libraries used commercially for JavaScript in embedded. They are mostly connected to Internet of Things. What is cool, because it's really easy to develop some small sensor, then try to integrate it into your smart home application and just be happy that it worked and that you did it on your own. Also that if it breaks, it's you to blame, not some producer you don't know. There's a nice engine developed by Samsung, which is, well, this Samsung. It's named JavaScript. There's a cool platform for robotics named Johnny 5. Actually, I wanted to present you some usage of Johnny 5 on Raspberry Pi today, but we don't have 3 hours, as I said. If anyone is interested, you may try to catch me offline because I have my board with me today. And there's an awesome solution named Node-RED, which is, so to say, high-level but low-code solution for various platforms where you can model some workflows. And it looks really cool, especially for prototyping your ideas for applications. Then there's also a start that if you think that, yeah, it's cool, so how should I begin? Then here's why. Here's how, not why. There are 2 really great evaluation boards easily available on the market despite the current hardware shortage. There's ESP32, which is crowdfunded, and several versions of this board were fully crowdfunded. Nice board with an extension in JavaScript. It has a cool web IDE. And there's also a Tessel2 board, which is a bit bigger. Last slide. And it comes with some long-term support version of Node.js. Final thoughts, I need to skip this, but these are quotes from the books about JavaScript for web developers. And there was also a really nice quote of an ex-ARM employee who decided to be a CTO of a company actually doing embedded JavaScript. That TLDR version is that even if, like in our team, C and C++ will be the main, JavaScript will be a really great support player in many cases, and it's really interesting to see where it goes in next years. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. You are a really great presenter. You are really, really clear. Now, I understand. Ja zrozumiałem, że jest ciężko właśnie, aby słuchać właśnie tam z tyłu. Mam propozycję, że jeżeli jest problem, jeśli chodzi o, że nic nie słyszymy, siedź troszeczkę bliżej, no. Na chwilę, a potem zrobimy przerwę i ułożymy wszystko trochę inaczej.
But it's like during studies. Some people are sitting in the front row, then there's a gap, and some people are sitting in the
Więc
back.
zapraszamy, bliżej, bo to będzie już łatwiej i jestem pod wrażeniem. I'm sorry. I'm really impressed by your presentation skills. A couple of things terrify me. I'm going to take some questions. Anybody get questions? The idea, first of all, I am a walking, how do you call it? Legacy hardware. Yeah, this is me. It's old. It's difficult to update. I understand front end. I understand back end, but this embedded thing terrifies me. Okay, here we go.
So how do you handle the fact that JavaScript is like loosely typed and like C is not?
Actually, a friend of mine is doing an application which uses TypeScript. However, it would really be a mess, especially with JavaScript evaluation of conditions. For sure, if you want to run it on embedded, it needs to be somehow compilable. Actually, what is done undercover in many cases is that this JavaScript is translated to C anyway.
Next question.
Okay, so what does the job market for embedded JavaScript looks like? Is it on decline or is it growing right now?
Right now, I remember several projects. What I see is that there's a large market for IoT specialists, or they both cloud and edge part of IoT, and yeah, it's strongly dependent on the projects. I don't recall seeing many job offers for that, apart from this one company which I mentioned before, but it hops from time to time. One of my previous companies actually had a really big embedded JavaScript team, and it was 5 years ago.
This whole idea of being controlled by my devices, I'm nervous, people. I got to tell you, is this the future? Is this what it's going to be?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. And I would like to ask, in what cases we should use JavaScript for embedded? Because what comes into my mind is to use like C or C++, which everybody uses. So in what cases is JavaScript really better?
Today, when I was in the train commuting from Wrocław in here, I actually saw a really nice summary. It's somewhere on YouTube from a company which decided to switch to Node.js on embedded, for better or for worse. And they said that, first of all, it's up to the team. If you don't need to meet some strict requirements of real-time operating systems, that you need to keep tight deadlines of finishing each task, or you don't need to do any resource-critical, time-critical operations, then yeah, it's fine. As an experienced embedded developer, I would say that JavaScript would be cool for some short-term products or like pilots where you just want to, say, integrate several things, do it fast, just to see if it works. And if it doesn't, then no worries. Similar cases, what I was also doing some time ago is prototyping for something which will be rewritten in a different language anyway, because right now we are just testing different solutions of some or versions of some algorithms.
Wow. Anyone else have any? We have time for one more question if someone has one. All I can say is I think JavaScript.
JavaScript and Rust. Rust is also an amazing thing.
And Rust. This is WarsawJS. What does that stand for? JS, right? That's JavaScript, right?
There is R.
JavaScript. JavaScript. Thank you very much for your presentation. Give her a big hand, everybody, once more. It seems like, oh, can I borrow that controller? That
yeah, I'm
semi-controller?
Sorry.
It seems like JavaScript is the way to go for at least the foreseeable future, folks. And I think we're in the right place. Oh, I just need this one. Oh, thank you so much. You really, really, really gave a great presentation. Thank you. That was very informative. Oh, we're back. Thank goodness. All right. Let's see. Our next presenter is going to be, oh boy, here we go with the pronunciation. This doesn't look like a Polish name, so I'm going to say Dzianis. Dzianis? Dzianis. Dzianis Pryshchep. Pryshchep? Yes? Dzianis Pryshchep. Welcome to the stage. The topic is Next.js in React.
No.
That one.
for a video?
No.
No. And the second photo, please. Oh, okay. So, okay.
Cool. I guess we can start. Guys, can you hear me well? At the end of the room as well? Nice.
Yeah, move closer if you can't hear.
I'll try to be louder. Can you hear me now? No? Okay. Perfect. So today I'm going to tell you about Next.js. It's React framework for server-side rendering. But before we will start, I would like to ask in general who from current audience is working with Next.js or used it in scope of your production projects. Could you please raise your hand? So, okay, there are several people. For guys who didn't use that, I hope it will be useful for you, since I would like to tell about general concept of that Next.js. Yeah. And before we will start, I will introduce myself a little bit. My name is Dzianis. I'm a lead software engineer in ITCard, and I already more than 6 years working with React and Node.js related stack, and 3 of them, 3 years, I already work with Next.js. That's why I will try to share my experience with you. So today I'm going to tell you in general about server-side rendering approach and how it works. Why do we need that? I would like to tell you about use cases of Next.js. Why can we use that framework in general? And what is the purpose? What is the business needs for that framework? Why do we need it in general? Then I would like to share some tips and experience from my real production experience of using that framework, since I used it on several projects. And I can share pros and cons of that framework, and I would like to do that. And at the end of the conversation, I would like to highlight at least some technical benefits of that framework. We will not go in the deep details since we are time limited. So let's go. I would like to tell you about what possible approaches for rendering in our web application in general. So we have multiple of them. And first one, it is our well-known, one second. Yeah, perfect. So well-known client-side rendering. When you load your application on client, and majority of the work we do on the client side. So it means that our client called to the server, we request some kind of URL for web application, we receive the page with empty HTML, and majority of work we do on scope of client side. So it means that we load all data on the client. It's one of the concepts. So single page application, it's one of the example for that case. Then we have server-side rendering. The same flow when we do the request from the client to the server, but as a result, we receive not empty HTML. So it's a mistake in the presentation, looks like. So it means that we prepare all necessary data in scope of requests on the server side, and we send the final prepared page with the data to the client. So it means that we do majority of the work on the server side in scope of data loading. And we have as well static site generation. It's the same approach of generation and building the page when we prepare the page on the server side, and then we just send it to the client. But the main difference between server-side rendering and static site generation is the moment when we generate that pages. On the server-side rendering, we do that per each request. So it means for every request that we try to make for our particular application, we will do that for every request. Our server will prepare the data for each request. For the static site generation, it means that we will generate our pages on the server on the build time when we build our application. So it means that on every request, user will see already prepared type of the page. So it's overall concept of the client and server-side rendering. So in case I will, one second, I will explain in trivial example when we try to load some kind of HTML on the client side. As a result, we will receive from the server empty HTML. All our connected scripts will do majority of the work in terms of data loading. And after that, data will appear and injected in scope of HTML. On the server side, we will receive already filled HTML with necessary content. So it means that content will already be sent from the server side. So what it looks like, it's trivial example, like let's imagine you requested a page for some car management, and you will receive already prepared HTML with data. Why it's important for ACO optimization? So it's set of best practices how your application will look like for search engines, for crawlers, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So, and next point, why do we use Next.js? Right now, I explained in general concept of server-side rendering and client-side. And Next.js is a framework which helps us to implement server-side rendering in scope of React infrastructure out of the box. So, and Next.js is popular and one second, something with that, right. So Next.js help us to do both static site generation, as I already mentioned before, server-side rendering for the server preparation of data. It helps us to improve ACO and in general performance of application. And it is good from the developer experience point of view. You as a developer, very confident what framework you are using. It's convenient for you as a developer to use already prepared functionality out of the box for that framework. It's a basic points that I highlighted during that presentation. And when we're talking why do we need in general that ACO optimization or server-side rendering, we have right now in scope of our, work a lot of business domain like entertainment, e-commerce, marketing application. There are a lot of that. And for that type of applications, it's very important how your application, like how your pages in general, are working in scope of internet, in scope of search engines, in scope of Google, for example, right? And for that type of business domains are very important how users will be redirected to that particular application. So, and in terms of ACO optimization, Next.js and server-side rendering as well take care about how our application will perform and how they will be indexed for search engines, just to make sure that that product that we are implementing will have expected user flow and expected user traffic to that application. So server-side rendering, right, Next.js implements it, but is it something new? Not really. A lot of languages like PHP, Python, Node.js as well, every language that supports some template-based functionality already did that a lot of years ago. It is not something new. Server-side rendering already works a lot, but you had a chance to, before Next.js, you had a chance to implement your own implementation of server-side rendering with a custom setup of React and Node.js. But it was not so convenient for developers. It was not out of the box. You need to configure it. It was not so stable in terms of configuration. So Next.js, out of the box functionality for server-side rendering. But is it good for ACO? Like for that set of best practices for crawlers and for your application, is it really help to achieve that best ACO metrics? For sure, yes. And when we will talk what exactly Next.js can, one second, what Next.js can exactly help us to do with that ACO optimization. Let me mention it. First of all, Next.js help you to build a nice structure for URLs of application. It has dynamic roads, so it helps you to achieve a better result in scope of your URLs built in. You can build Slack messages in any way that you want to do it, multi-language support in terms of localization, etc. So you can do everything that you would like to do in terms of URLs configuration. Then, when we're talking about content, and as already mentioned, like when we preload data in scope of server-side rendering, it helps Google crawlers to handle your web application and handle its content to understand what this page is about, like what type of content is preloading to that web application. So Next.js contains server-side rendering and static site generations out of the box. Both of that mechanisms are supported. Then, when we are talking about loading speed, Next.js helps us to achieve better metrics at the initial loading time, at the for general performing your application by build out of the box helping tools in terms of different components like images, fonts, etc. I'll talk about them below. So in terms of loading speed, what can affect to that? Next.js supports code splitting, and when we are loading initial bundle for Next.js application, it helps us to make dynamic imports just to reduce amount of the bundle and split it for the smaller chunks. So it reduces initial time to render in scope of performance report, and it's really help. It is not something new, but it's supported as well. Then Next.js cares about how images are rendered and how they optimized. I will talk about them as in a separate slide. As well, Next.js handles links preloading. I will talk about it as well on the next slide. It takes care about fonts and in general about performance metrics and conversion rate, because it's not a separate definitions. As soon as we will see our application on the browser, we'll have better conversion rate in scope of our application. So let me show some example for you. I just Google random site in scope of Google. I try to make Lighthouse report in scope of browser. It's a basic tool, initial tool that helps you to understand performance of your application. It's not ideal, but for visibility, it's enough, at least for first steps. And as you can see, I just searched some site, made a report for that. It has something at the middle result in scope of performance, at the middle of accessibility, some not very good best practices, but from the ACO point of view, it's good. But from my experience, and when we implemented such applications with ACO focus, it's not really enough to have ACO optimized solution like necessary metadata, how to say, semantic implementation of your solution, etc., right copy. It's not enough. Google crawlers as well take care about how your application performs in scope of loading and in scope of interaction with users. And as you can see, we have a set of metrics here, like first, contentful paint, time to be interactive, speed index. And in case that values will be bad, your application will be not so good from the performance point of view in terms of Google reports from the different type of performance metrics for crawlers. So it means that we should take care about each about each metrics in terms of that report, and Next.js helps to take care about each of that items. I just highlighted here just for visibility that we can improve everything from that list using Next.js tools. So and my next slide will be about, some example of bad performance, like not the bad performance, but issues that can affect that metrics, like incorrect images using, like you didn't set exact metrics, or some improvements possible are in scope of style and layout optimization, some other JavaScript-related metrics. And in case you will use correct implementation of images in scope of Next.js, correct implementation of fonts, correct approach for server-side rendering, and correct splitting of what data you would like to show at first, you will reduce overall amount of that performance metrics. And it means that your application will perform better in general. So, and Lighthouse tool is good enough in terms of that suggestions. Even it understands that your application is written using Next.js, and it can suggest, like, hey, instead of using native image HTML tag, please use Next.js image with such set of settings, that it will help to resolve such kind of issue. And there are a lot of suggestions that can be applied to that solution in terms of Next.js. So, list of some items that can help to improve that kind of report. And I will tell about each of them, but not in details. So, next link, it's item from the Next.js library that can help you to organize work with your links in scope of application. Like for better performance in scope of user flow, you can set some kind of preloading mechanism for links for better user journey. So it means, like, for initial load of the page, you will render your application, and that links that are highlighted in scope of your viewport in background can be preloaded. So it means that when user will click to the next link, it will more faster given to the user. So it helps to build more faster user journey in scope of your application. Next one is next head tool, something with that item. Yeah, next head. So it helps you to configure in general SEO related metrics like page metadata, page preview, images, description, title, all kind of data related to SEO metrics in scope of application. So you can configure it in scope of out-of-the-box component for application. Then next one is next image. Nice tool that really can help you to reduce time for browser to render at correct way how images should be placed in scope of your browser. It can additionally help you to organize loading of your images in scope of application in case you have multiple loading stage for the images, or in case you have a lot of images, you can set priority for loading of them just to make sure that you will load only necessary type of data. So it helps to reduce loading time as well. Next one, it's flexible redirects. So it's item in general related to improvements, possible improvements of your application. So let's imagine a case. You implemented application with some set of URLs. It doesn't matter, like, let it be some car /ID, something like that. But then your business requirements was changed. And right now, you need to update your URLs in scope of your application. But your URLs already in Google, your URLs already crawled by browsers in sitemap, etc. And in case you need to tell crawlers, search engines, like, hey, in case you landed to the old realization of page, please redirect me in expected way to the new page with appropriate HTTP status like 308, and Next.js do it out of the box. So in case you need change any kind of redirect, expected redirect, and tell like to search engines that it is something expected, and attach some additional information that, hey, we need to replace it in future. Next.js can help you to do that. Then next item is next font. Like it helps you to organize work with fonts and reduce unnecessary network request for Google loading. So it handle it out of the box under the hood, and it just reduce unnecessary network request. So it works with Google fonts and with your custom fonts as well. Then, as already mentioned, we have dynamic imports for code splitting. It just reduce amount of your initial bundle. So I guess it's clear. Then next item is built-in cache settings. Next.js helps you to configure work with cache headers, with cache settings, which can help you to organize how your request or how your static content should be cached in terms of your application. So it's very easy to configure all necessary cache settings. Then one new feature from the last version of Next.js, of Next.js, its last version, it's streaming. Like it's mechanism that can help you to organize initial preloading of, let's imagine you requested your web application, right? And it helps you to show some kind of initial loading state or some information before your data will be loaded, and while data is loading in the background, and it will show that initial content. But as soon as data will be prepared, it will just stream it exactly to your page. So next slide is about in general. Okay, I mentioned benefits from the small items to improve your application, right? Server-side rendering is one of the mechanisms that can help you. All additional settings in terms of images, performance can help you achieve your goals as well. And I didn't mention something about static site generation. Everything was about server-side rendering. Next.js support that type of mechanism, but with nice, cool feature, it named incremental static regeneration. Like, as already mentioned, static site generation is mechanism for build time of process. Like, you make a build of your application, you have some static content in scope of your pages, and you just serve it to the user. But Next.js allow you to regenerate your statically generated pages without rebuild. So let's imagine that you have some kind of content that not frequently changed, and you need from time to time to update it, but without rebuild. So Next.js allows to do that. So we can build some kind of page with getStaticProps method, set revalidate value. In that example, it's 30 seconds. So it means that as soon as I will call that page, it will give me the old version, but in 30 seconds, for the new request, we will have new version of the page, which was revalidated. It's really nice feature that can help you to avoid unnecessary rebuilds of your static content. So, and why Next.js is good for developers? I mentioned only, benefits in terms of performance and in terms of applications, like why SEO is important and why server-side rendering is important. But as a developers, it's very important to understand that it is convenient tool that can solve your tasks, your problems, etc. And for me as a developer, it's very convenient to work with Next.js, just because it's React ecosystem. Everything from the React works in scope of Next.js. The same libraries, the same NPM, right? So everything that you can do in scope of React, you can do in scope of Next.js. Okay, then routing. Since we have strictly defined way how should we work with routing in scope of Next.js. It allows us to follow the same rules for all application. Just we have rules and we know how to do that. Then zero config. It's pretty straightforward item. Like for me as a developer to start some kind of project with server-side rendering, I need to type few type of commands and I will use that concept. No additional configuration are required for that. There are a few more items like fast refresh. It works really fast in terms of implementation, even with 12th version of Next.js. The last version is 13. When we have Rust-based compiler, it works even faster. But anyway, fast refresh is really nice. As a developer, you will not see any kind of issues during the development. And for me, it's very important and convenient that some kind of problems that previously as a developer I solved with some kind of tricky solutions, right now I can solve with solutions that Next.js provide me out of the box. And for me, for example, to organize images preloading, mechanism, it's easy to just use image component and configure it correctly instead of trying to implement something and to implement the wheel. And then last point from that developer action that I would like to highlight, it's Vercel implementation. It's a tool that was built by Next.js for deployment process, and I worked with that before in scope of one of the projects. And Vercel is their own system for deployment, built especially for Next.js ecosystem. 1 second, let me, yep. So it's just deployment tool. You can configure your CI/CD pipeline without any kind of huge, tricky configuration. It works perfectly for some kinds of not huge projects, for MVP, for proof of concept or something like that. It's my opinion. We worked with that, and to be honest, for the basic setup, it works ideally. You can clearly understand what is going on. You can control some kind of preview for deployment. You can take a look what you would like to deploy or something like that. It's very useful thing. But in case you would like to build some kind of complicated system, enterprise system with complicated production setup, multiple environments, or per feature branch deploy, some complicated environmental variables management, it will just not work because it's easy to start, but it is not easy to adjust it for your specific business needs of your application. That's probably that's only negative side that I can tell about it. 1 second. Oh, yeah. So here was a slide regarding like it's easy to track build time. You can preview your deployment. It can show as a separate window. It's easy to connect to any Git control system, so etc. and so on and so forth. So what's next? I'll try to switch my slide again. Yeah. All my experience was based on versions 12 and below, and there were no any kind of major production issues as a framework. It did all necessary and expected job for us, and we as developers achieved all expected metrics in terms of performance, in terms of how it works in production. We didn't have any kind of issues, to be honest. And a few months ago, we had a new release of Next.js 13 version. And to be honest, I didn't try it on production. We're in process of upgrade to that version. Even it's stable according to the documentation, and we can use it. There are a lot of alpha, beta functionality in scope of the release, and we are still monitoring to try something on the production. But I would like to tell a few highlights for you that you can take a look in scope of that release. So there are few features that were added in scope of that release, and I briefly would like to highlight them so you can take a look in details in case you will have a chance to do that. So layouts feature, it helps us to more clearly set up code reusability between pages and how we can insert some kind of code per multiple pages. So it just for reusability functionality in terms of page building. Then React server components. So it's definition of code that we mostly use on the server side, and we don't want to lend it to the client side in case it is not used on the client. So it means that we can split our implementation of components to the server-side components and on the client-side components, and on the final build of the page that you would like to get from the server, that chunk of components will be just not injected to that build. Then streaming, I already mentioned, like a mechanism for loading page and then stream some kind of data. There are multiple variations for doing that. And according to the documentation, they are clearly defined, so you can take a look on them. Next font, as already mentioned, it helps us to organize fonts management and just reduce unnecessary network requests in case you work with some kind of fonts in scope of your application. And it does out-of-the-box optimization, how fonts are connected, and so on and so forth. And one last point is Turbo Pack from the latest version. Latest version has new compiler based on Rust, and comparing with Webpack, it's much more faster. Again, according to the documentation, I tried locally. Definitely it worked faster, but as a developer, it is not something significantly improved, right? Because even when you work with Webpack, you don't sit and wait while your application will be rebuilt, right? But it works even faster, and it's good. So what's next? What I would like to say by that presentation. As you can see, I didn't share in details any kind of technical questions because, I mean, we are limited. In general, I would like to highlight what this tool is about and when and why you can use it. So for me, I worked with Next.js in scope of multiple projects. And I can say that it is modern framework with a huge community, with huge demand right now on the market. And it solves a lot of issues and problems under the hood. I mean, it takes care about performance. You can do some kind of tweaks, improvements for your application in case you need it. It's easy to start and really easy to implement some kind of solution as a developer. So it helps you to achieve your business needs at first. And what negative sides I can share regarding that? As I already mentioned, Vercel, it's again part of the Next.js anyway, because it's a tool for Next.js. It works, for my opinion, only for basic setup. In case you have something more complicated, it will just not help you to make your life easily, not really. And one more point, it's not a negative side. In case you think that Next.js will do everything instead of you as a developer, it's not true. In case you would like to achieve better performance, better results, and you think like server-side rendering will do everything, and it will help you to achieve best score in scope of performance, ACO metrics, not really. You can do build of your application in scope of all possible ways to improve it, not only server-side rendering. So please take care about all possible chunks of improvement that you can apply. That probably was my last slide, and that's time for questions.
Dzianis, Dzianis, is that the pronunciation?
Denis.
I was told about the questions that we don't really do contests here. However, I got some instructions that the person who would ask the question, which is most difficult for Dzianis to answer, might receive something in return. So yeah, I'm balancing here. Okay, we're not conducting a contest here. It's not a lottery. It's nothing of the sort. There's no competition. However, if you have a question, the question which is the most difficult for this man to answer, it's possible that you might receive something in turn. Before we even go there, next this, Next.js, next everything. What's next? What's next? That's my question. Every time I'm listening to, I'm not a technical person. I'm a very simple, ordinary guy. So the whole time when the presenters are speaking, I'm hearing GPT, GPT-3, GPT 3.5. I'm thinking there's got to be a simpler way, and I'll find it. Yeah, because we don't have enough education in primary schools for our kids. And I just want to remind everyone that sharing this knowledge here among professionals is one thing. Please remember that the generation that's coming behind us is going to really need this information. So if you have the time to volunteer, to share information with young kids, give them a mentorship or give them something, please do, because it's coming really fast. Okay, anybody have any questions for Dzianis? No questions? Oh, here we go. No, remember what I said, right? Okay. Here you go.
So you're talking about Next.js, it's all nice and sweet, but are there any caveats or the use cases you would not select Next.js to solve your problems?
It's a good question. First of all, selection of your framework or tool in general depends on what you would like to build. In case you will have requirement to build any kind of B2B solution like business solutions that will not take care about performance or about server-side rendering approach, like you can load everything on the client, it does not make any sense to use that tool in terms of server-side rendering and performance. You still can use it for developer experience, right? But you should think about it. Why do you use that? Not only just because it's popular or something like that. You should solve exact problem by selection of your framework.
Question here. Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to see that. On the other side, regarding the Versal was created specifically for the Next.js, and that's why it supports all of these beautiful features which you described, the images, the fonts, all that stuff, incremental site generation. When the Versal appeared, probably all the other providers were not supporting these features. From my knowledge, it's still quite difficult to achieve that performance, to achieve those features on other providers, AWS, all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was honestly surprised when you said that you use other places to host your sites. And I was simply interested, how difficult is it to adjust to them? How difficult is it to configure? What are the biggest challenges in that field? So not the development itself, but the deployment rather. Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
You got the question? Okay.
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. Let's imagine, we are not implementing only Next.js application, right? We are working in scope of businesses that has a lot of application. And in case you have all infrastructure in scope of AWS, and you just want to have something on the Versal, and you don't have any kind of chance to communicate between those systems, it make a lot of pain to support both, right? And in our case, when everything are landed on the AWS, we decided to store everything on one place. And for sure, something cannot be supported or implemented in scope of custom setup, even on AWS. But in majority of cases, when you are talking about supporting system with multiple pieces, it's easy to configure something on your custom domain setup, right? Rather than try to additionally support two directions. That's the main, item that I would like to highlight.
Some of the most difficult place.
We can talk about it after. Yeah.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you for your awesome presentation. I have a cool question for you. For such a long time developing Next.js applications, have you ever faced with an issue of random things in Next.js? Because there are kind of problem with rehydration while you're trying to render something in your application, and on the server it will be rendered in one way, and while having it on the client side, it will be the other way.
Good question. To be honest, I didn't face with such kind of issues. That's why I can't answer as you want to hear something specific. But I would say that we had some kind of problems with latest release of Node.js, like 18 version. Implementation of get server-side static props or something like that. I don't remember which exactly method was affected. It just decided to not work, just because Node.js of 18 version has experimental fetch method, and it doesn't work in that way right now. Exactly 12 version of Next.js with latest version of Node.js. So we just disabled experimental fetch for that functionality. But for your initial question, no, we didn't have any kind of problems with that.
We can talk on that.
Yeah, okay.
Last question?
Yeah.
So, hello. Nice presentation. I have a question. How hard do you find to transform an app written in pure React with also TypeScript into a Next.js app, and why? What are the harshness? What are the pros? What are the cons? And so on.
Sorry, question was...
That's 1.5 questions. Can you ask that again?
Excuse me?
That was 1 comma pinch. Ask it one more time.
Where was the half? Like 1.5, so where was the half?
That's what I heard. Can you just ask the question?
Yeah, can you repeat the beginning of the question? I just didn't
The beginning
hear.
was, how hard do you find it to transform a React TypeScript app into a Next.js app, and why? What are the hardness of this?
Yeah, from my point of view, it's, not complicated mechanism at all, because, flow for, how to say, React ecosystem, right? Next.js support TypeScript. It's not a problem at all, right? The only way is that you should take care about how you will organize your routing, just because you need to re-implement your custom routing setup in React application for the Next.js realization. And you need to just change way how you retrieve data. Rather than that, I don't see any kind of blockers of that migration. It's pretty straightforward.
Dzianis, you have another one? Okay. Try to keep in mind which one was the most difficult. Okay.
I tried to use Next.js, and I tried to use the framework, and it was kind of tricky to connect it to the database, to MongoDB or something like this. But the question is like this: when should we have like separate backend and separate frontend, or when should we implement the whole logic on Next.js and simply don't have any backend? Maybe in common view backend.
Okay. Let me think. So, in general, let me describe how we work, right? Let's imagine like you have a basic API set, it will be REST API or something like that, that written on any kind of backend language, .NET, Node.js, Python, etc. And we usually work in we build in a setup, Next.js as a, part of the front end, and we use external APIs. We are not trying to build Next.js as a, monolithic application with everything on one place, like request, database, etc. I didn't saw such kind of implementation when you try to get the data from the Next.js implementation directly from the database. So I would say that it's more convenient when you have a separate backend for that, just because let's imagine, okay, today we have Next.js, right? But in 2 years we will have something else, and in case you need to upgrade it, yeah, it will not work. Yeah.
Right. Always think about what might be next. I think it's that's a good advice. That's really good advice. Okay, Dzianis, so you have an idea of which of these questions was the most difficult to answer?
Most difficult to answer, probably the last question. Yeah, it's just, I need to think about it. So
you need to think, you decide though, it's a decision.
Yeah, I already decided, yeah.
Here is something that just appeared out of heaven for you, sir. All right, so thank you very much. No one else? We're done with that. I thank you all. Oh, we have, oh boy, okay. Dzień dobry. To jest pan Artur, jesteś? Pytanie? Okay, here we go.
So hi, thank you very much for your talk. So I've been thinking about the hardest question I can ask.
It's too late, you missed the boat. Anyway, go ahead.
It's great. But do you happen to know what are the bad practices Next.js is forcing us to use from software development? And if there are some, you can just give one, and how we can get rid of it. Thank you.
Did you just run in here to ask that question? What are the worst things that they're making us do? Oh, please answer.
Good question. Next question. I don't know, to be honest. I try don't follow bad practices, right? And I would not try to advise something in terms of bad practices. I just simply don't know, to be honest. Yeah.
I think that was an appropriate response. What are the worst practices? Well, we try not to focus on the bad practices, actually. Best practices. Dzianis, that's your name? Thank you very much. Great presentation. Fantastic. Give him a hand, everybody. All right. So this light, because I'm standing in front of the screen. Okay. So folks, here's how it's probably going to go. We have one more person who's going to come up and make a very short presentation, and this will be the manager of our main sponsor, iTech Art, and I believe his name is Alexander Palis. Is that right? Pali. Pale. Palu. Pali. Pala. Thank you very much. And after that, after this presentation, we're going to invite, they would like to invite small groups of you to check out the view from the top floor. So find one of these people in a red shirt, and they will be happy to take you up there. I understand it's quite impressive, maybe even, like a life-changing, altering experience being up there for a few minutes. You can take a look, and of course, there will be what? Pizza. Did anyone know? It's a surprise. Nobody knew there was going to be pizza. There will be pizza and probably some beer also after this. Probably, yes. Here you go, sir. Thank you very much. You want to take, should I give him this as well, or it's good without? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is it working? Yes? No? Yes. I don't know. Okay, for some reason we don't have a slide, but who cares? We do have?
Just a second. Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I don't need it. So just, 2 minutes while pizza is arriving. So ID card company, we started in Poland just the last year. We already grew up in Poland only to 700 people. We have offices in Poland in 6 beautiful cities. First of all, of course, Warsaw. And then we have headquarters in Łódź. We have offices in Krakow, Gdańsk, Wrocław, and Poznań. So we love to work with JS. We have Dennis as one of our managers, actually, who's both developer and manager. You saw him right now with his nice speech. So I don't want to take more time from you. I just want to invite you, as it was already mentioned, to enjoy the view of the Warsaw from the 42nd floor. And for those of you who would like to, also, I'm inviting you to our office on the 29th floor, just to compare the views and maybe see if you like the office. So that's it. Thank you.
Wow. That's what I call lightning. That was like, whoosh. You would miss it if you blinked. Okay, folks, we will have, as promised, the opportunity for at least 2 of you, I understand, to give lightning talks. However, let's do a short stretch and get some air and maybe some pizza first and come back. Please, we invite you to come back and we can do those lightning talks after the break. Is that all right with everybody? Yeah, cool? JavaScript, JavaScript. Thank you very much, everybody. See you after the break. Thank you.
And yes, I want to start this story from the flood because I didn't want to piss you out telling you that in my city is 20 degrees right now because I flew to talk with you and to be with you today from Lisbon. So yes, yesterday I was running in the shorts. But this, I know that this meetup is not about climate changes, so let's go back to the tech topics. We at CUX, we are doing analytical application. We are trying to understand the user's behavior. And in 2019, we had this crazy idea to connect the best possible options from Google Analytics, from the numbers, with the platform that brings you recordings, which is, you know, this jar full of the fire, basically the hot jar. So because we were a little bit more onto the business side instead of the techies, we decided to build everything very fast and validate our idea as soon as possible. So what we did is we just started collecting data from the websites of our back then potential customers, now our customers, and we had the first challenge to somehow transfer this tremendous amount of data from the websites to our servers. And the first issue, I mean, the first approach was to check and to make a little reverse engineering of how Google Analytics does. And it turns out they are just basically sending AJAX request every couple of seconds. So the Hotjar does, and pretty much every other tool. So we got inspired by that, and we just simply built the same solution. So every couple of seconds, we just ping our servers with the AJAX request, which was fine for the first, I would say, 3-4 days. Because then we were featured by some guy, which we named it Sadek effect after that, and we started to have a little bit bigger customers than we expect at the beginning. For example, one of the biggest Polish airline, we have one. But yes, we got the interest from such companies like that. So the traffic was a bit higher than we expected at the beginning, and we had to really fast the solution really quick. How many of you are familiar with the sockets, web sockets? Most probably everyone. Yes. So we thought that maybe this might be a good solution. So what we did, we found a framework that will help us to build the communication between customer websites and our platform. So we ended up with the Socket.io. Who knows? Who is familiar with the Socket.io? Who thinks that Socket.io sucks? Okay, so it sucks. It sucks because, I mean, it was fine for another 3-4 days, I would say, or maybe up to 2 weeks. But quickly it turns out that somehow is eating memory on our servers even faster than Chrome on my laptop, even with my 200 open tabs. And we couldn't find where are the memory leaks. And basically where we arrived to the point that there are huge memory leaks produced by the Socket.io. The other thing that we challenged is that we didn't want just to collect every possible event from the website, but we also want to record the sessions. So the other thing that we we added on top of already these communication issues was about how to make a pixel perfect preview. With the support for single pages and for everything. So we basically find out that we have such a thing like mutation observer, where we can just fetch basically information about every DOM change, right? But I don't know if you are familiar, mutation observer has a little teeny tiny thing that makes your life a little bit harder, like the flat in Lisbon for me right now. The thing is that if you have too much events at the same time, or maybe in any random cases, the mutation observer will inform you about changes and will tell you what precisely happened, but he doesn't care about correct order. So then when we try to reapply those changes, it turns out that it's messy and we will not able to rebuild correctly the view. But this is completely other thing. What I would like to say that we just added on top of all the events, clicks, page loads, and so on, we added another bunch of data, which was the DOM divs. And yes, final thoughts. We just decided to refactor everything we have. Just drop the socket.io, rewrite right from scratch our own implementation of WebSocket. It works really well. The first release we had after 48 hours, which was perfect. And because we are running out of the time, and this is not the presentation, but rather a lightning talk, the main key takeaway for you is that we are facing the challenge to choose the fastest possible solution and the right solution. And we have to always choose because we cannot make both in the same time. And I would like to advise you to go in between. Thank you.
Hold on, wait. Can't have everything is what you're saying, yes? Does anyone have any questions for Camille? No questions? Never?
Maybe one.
Ever? Not even one? Okay, maybe one. Does anyone have a question? Okay, there are no questions. Thank you very much, Camille. I appreciate it. Your JetBrains license. Okay, so as promised, I'm speaking to this microphone for our online audience. This is why I still have this thing. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, Panie I Panowie, Artur Zokniak. Ze slajdami nawet. Oh, okay. Artur, 5 minut. Lightning talks, everyone, just for future reference. We hope you'll come on the 100th meeting and give a lightning talk. Any topic is welcome, especially if it's valuable information. 5 minutes, please. Thank you. Ale on potrzebuje ten mikrofon.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, Warsaw, and good evening, WarsawJS. So, like Barry said, this is very strong WarsawJS meeting, and I agree with that. That 99 sounds much stronger than 100, and I think this is wonderful that this matches with. I need a clicker. And I think that this is wonderful that it matches. Okay, so let's go back. I think this is wonderful that it matches with the end of the year, because my accountants are usually sending me like documents named 99, and this reminds me that we are ending important part of our life. This is next year, and this goes along with 99th meeting of WarsawJS. And for this reason, I wanted to share with you something new. And I wanted to ask, who of you here have heard about solid rules in object-oriented programming? Who thinks, not that many of you, who thinks out of you, who thinks understands them? And who of you applies them during your daily routines? Okay, this is wonderful. We have at least 2 people. To all of other people, I have something which you will definitely get interested in. Okay, so, but let's start with something. Let's start with something important, and let's start with a generalization. So recently there have been multiple research being made on the artificial intelligence, and it turns out that computers seem to be able to at least produce outcome of what we would name thinking. And for me, this is a topology. So this is finding analogies in different ways of looking at reality around us. So I had to start with that. And I have a question. Do you know how many holes a human body has? 0. So okay. So so it doesn't. So like only two. But and to topological extent, we are very similar to this cup of tea or thing. Who of you heard about topology in math or in? Okay, so you see more people. Okay, let's move on if we can. Yeah. So let's get to know each other. Who of you have heard about OpenTDD? Wonderful, nice. Next slide. Who of you have heard about the most complex, I think, mood-like game CDDA, Cataclysm? Nobody. Okay, you have heard. Nice. Okay, let's move on. Yeah. Who knows Stanisław Lem? Wow. So at least, for those of you who don't know Stanisław Lem, you should be reading more. I highly encourage you to. And who knows about Eternity 2 game? Nobody. This is okay. And was this related to my talk? I can't tell you for now, but what I can tell you is that those things which I have shown, in case if you would be afraid of so-called AI, which is in fact model trained on all of our knowledge, if you are worried that AI will take off your job, my talk, or actually series of this talk, will make sure that you won't be in the first place whose AI is going to rip you off from your work or possibilities to earn money. So we will get back to all of those things which I've shown you in previous slides. So let's move on. And basically, solid principles in object programming are good practices, which, if you apply them in a strategic manner to your even big source code, your code becomes scalable. It's easier to get rid of mistakes. So generally, it's worth it. Okay, let's move on. So there are like five rules. Let's move on. So why would you care about solid? And let's move on. So generally, I have 3 reasons for young programmers, for senior programmers, and also for people who are leading teams. Yes, I know. Unfortunately, I know. And basically, if you are a junior developer, you will be earning more and more over time. Your salary will be increasing faster. If you are a senior developer, you will be maintaining your code base in an easy manner. If you are a product owner, you will be able to control risk in your product development. And also, next slide. And also, this is important for investors and business owners. I need I need a little bit, if 1 minute long. So, all of those reasons are also for investors and business owners. So in case if you would be having your own company, then this is also very important for you. As you can see, less worries with exclamation mark. This is highly important that you can control your code base. We have seen multiple firms failing because of not being able to control your software. Let's move on. Yeah, so those are acronyms for those rules. Let's, so basically, this is single responsibility principle, open close principle, list of substitution. Those are all of those rules which are important. And I will today, I'm already out of time, but I just want to show you in a very meaningful and I hope understandable way the first of those rules. And we will be, you will see me explaining ones in next talks. So if we can move on, yeah. So those are like my understanding. We can skip it for now. And let's say yes. So let's say that we want to mount a light bulb at our home, and we will be. Of course, we have a home, we have a house, and we want to mount a light. Let's move on. So we need a switch to turn it off. Let's move on. We will mount those two, and now, next slide, please. We have a specification change, and we want to add one more light bulb. What would you do? Yeah, of course, we would mount it, but what's the problem here? Who can tell me what's the problem?
You have one switch that turns them both on.
Wonderful. Does everybody understand it? This is not that hard. So how we can solve it?
State it as a feature at the back.
Okay, so this is like the hardcore way. We are almost done. So next slide. What we could do? Yes, next slide, please. So of course we could in a basic solution in the wrong solution we would basically wire the two light bulbs to one switch. Let's move on. Of course, like you mentioned. Okay, so the solution is to have two wall switches. And yeah, next slide. And basically, we need to separate those features so that they can be controlled from separate wall switches. So this is first story of me introducing you to solid principles in software development. Like I said, this is going to secure your job. If you like it, please visit my website. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so we said no questions during the lightning talk. You provided your own questions. I love you for that. I have a question, though, and I think I can have one question. Is it okay? How much of this presentation was prepared by artificial intelligence? Did you use any artificial intelligence in the preparation of this presentation, Mr. Zokniak? Yes, no, maybe? How much?
None.
Very
None.
good. Excellent.
None.
Folks, I have this discussion every day. About are our jobs going to be threatened? What's going to happen for the industry? What about the market? What about the competition? What is this going to mean? Artificial intelligence, is it a threat? And my answer was, why don't you ask the artificial intelligence, ask it what type of threat it could present. Now, this is an instrument or a tool which is not really capable of dishonesty, or there has no particular agenda. And so ask your artificial intelligence tools to discuss it among themselves and to tell you what, in fact, are their potential uses, their potential misuses, and which professions and types of work that they will most likely affect. That was what we came up today in the conversation. Does it sound like it makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for introducing that into the discussion today.
Thank you very much.
I'm into it. I'm into artificial intelligence. I'm really, 2 years ago when I started working with you people, with developers, with Piotr Gentara, my first question was, what does it all mean? What's going to happen? We're doomed. How do we control it? Do we control it? Who's going to own it? These types of questions years ago became apparent to me, and you guys should be having the same questions and understand that you, as developers, are actually in a unique position to help to steer the direction of this technology. Please understand that. This is very, very important. So we need you. We have another lightning talk. We have a third one happening. Come on. This is our treasured volunteer, new volunteer even. And I'm pretty sure he's going to have something really interesting for you guys. Thanks for staying, by the way. We hope to see you at the 100th meeting. Can we just thank the sponsors one more time before I put him on? Can you put the sponsor sheet back up? Because I always forget to do this. Once more, folks, applause while I'm speaking, if you would. Okay. Sponsors, Tech, iTech Art, Box, CallStack, Fresha, Evolution, Daft Code, Prisma, SoftServe, and XFang. We thank you very much. You ready, sir?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Right. Can you hear me, right? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mehdi. Actually, it was a surprise for me that I'm a volunteer today, but Piotr gave me a chance, an opportunity to introduce myself. So I'm going to do very quickly. It's going to be introduction, appreciation, and advice, maybe, from a friend. Who am I? Interesting question. I started in 2018. My medical studies, I thought I'm going to be a doctor. But after 4 years, life turned out differently for me. So I had to have a change of career. After that, because of my love for psychology, I got introduced to the UX design. And quickly ever after, got to the UI design and UI development, and front-end development, React. From there, I can say the story continued. But I remember the WarsawJS meeting 96, 8-year anniversary of this community. I participated, and actually after that meeting, I got courage enough to contact Piotr, and he immediately gave me points and grabbed my hand. From that, I got a lesson, actually, that first of all, I should appreciate this community, and I do appreciate Piotr for all the chances and everything. And my friendly advice, I can say, is mostly for beginners, for people who are new to this community, I can say. I encourage you, I can say, to step ahead, show yourself, show your talent, maybe reach out to the community. This community is very friendly, and there are a lot of opportunities here. So that's all I can say. Thanks for your time, everyone, and I hope you have a very amazing night ahead. Goodbye.
That was way fast. That was way faster than we expected. Listen, everyone, I think that's all we got, unless, look at that. Okay, we would like to invite you for our upcoming meetup. Our guests will be a total surprise. Here you can see the QR code. Please take pictures. Get your phones up, everybody, so you can be in touch with the information. You can find details there. And we will start at 6:30 CET at the Google campus for Google for Startups campus, or is it Google campus for startups? Okay, we know where it is. It's in Praga, Pas Konesera, 10. And this was me when I was younger, over here. And let's see, Friday the 13th, only you could manage that. I'm really impressed. It will not be on a Wednesday. It will be on a Friday, a very special Friday. That means that we can have the party a little bit better. And organizers, the bosses are promising surprises. So we hope to see you all there. Once again, thanks to our tech team and to our volunteers and to Piotr Gentara and Gabriela Chuha, all the organizers, and Maciej Machniewski, we love you. And everybody, thank you very much. See you next time. Thank you so much. Have a good night.